All right, here we go. It's Monday night, and Monday night is when I record Anabolic Academy. I'm thinking about maybe doing this portion live. What do you guys think? Tell me on the comment section if you think I should do this live. But anyway, okay. Anabolic Academy. This is the part on Serious and Silliness Bodybuilding where you ask me questions and I answer them. Where can you reach me? Serious and Silliness Instagram, John Livia Facebook, John Livia TikTok, my email, Uncle John 1201 at Gmail, my other email, John_Livia at Yahoo. Now, if you guys haven't seen, go look at the interview on Ron Harris's podcast with Phil Clayhar. He retired this weekend from bodybuilding. It's a great interview because Phil doesn't pull any punches. He talks about the politics in bodybuilding, and he talks about why he retired a little bit sooner than he had thought he would have to. But great interview. Go check it out, really. Okay, before we get started with the questions, I need to make a shout out first. All right. So the shout out is for Marco and Joelle Klassen in Caldwell, New Jersey. First, Marco, thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Second, if you really do need any help or you want to ask me any questions, you know me personally, just give me a call or text me. And Joelle, I'm sorry that you have to see my face and hear my voice in your living room, but I'm very happy that you do. And hey, look, just look at it this way. This is a short segment. It's a good thing Marco doesn't watch Muscle Talk. That's always an hour long. Fuck that shit. Anyway, all right, guys. Thank you for watching, Marco. Appreciate it. Let's see. Next, we have to go to the questions for Anabolic Academy. Now, we have a lot of questions, which excites me because that means the channel is growing and the channel is becoming more and more popular. So, first question, Savage_Sean01. Worst side effect you got from gear and what was it? The worst side effect I got from gear was Pepe didn't work. This is when I was young and I did not know what I was doing. I think every young bodybuilder, young guy who just wants to look good on the beach or whatever the case may be, goes through this, even though the older guys always tell them what to do. The young guys always do what they want to do anyway. Okay, so here's what happened. I had no sex drive after so much time, and I couldn't get it up. It wasn't working. I had a girlfriend at the time, and I was like, what the hell fuck is going on? I was like freaking out. And I remember that. I told the story before, but I remember I went to this a seminar that Dave Palumbo was doing, and at the time Dave Palumbo was like 300 pounds, he was a monster. And it was in Queens. I forgot the name of the gym. I don't remember the name of the gym, but it was on Queens Boulevard. I went with a couple of friends, whatever. And he had explained what was happening. So what I was doing is I was only taking like about 250 to 500 milligrams a week of testosterone. Now, at my age now, at 48, that's plenty, right? But you have to remember, when you're 21, your testosterone level is already through the roof, okay? It is through the roof. So when you take 250 milligrams, 500 milligrams a week, what happens after so much time is your body's like, oh, I'm getting testosterone from somewhere else. I'm not going to produce my own, or I'm going to lower it extremely low. And now you're working on this little bit of testosterone, right? Now, at 48, your testosterone level is already low. So if you take 250, 500 milligrams, you're going to raise it to above average levels, but you're not going to have the same reaction as you did at 21. Now, this is not everybody. This is what happened to me. And this probably happens to a lot of young guys. They just don't like to admit it because at 21, this is very common. I just don't think it's spoken about. But anyway, it was basically a quick fix. It's just that 21, you freak out. You're like, my dick doesn't work. Jesus Christ, what am I going to do? And I had to pick up Clomid. And I remember I used Clomid, and in like a week, I was back to normal, right? Uh, I didn't know what proper PCT back then. I didn't know what HCG was. I didn't know not to use a anti-estrogen. I didn't know about Clomid till this happened. I would just go on, come off. Like I didn't know any of that. Right. Another bad side effect was I did get gyno in both sides, and I did have to have them removed. Again, because when I was young, I didn't take an anti-estrogen. I didn't know about it. I didn't realize the chemistry and how it worked. I think a lot of people go through this, but they just don't say anything. The gyno they probably admit to. Your dick not working, they probably don't admit to too much. Other than that, I never broke out that bad. I never, got high blood pressure or anything like that. All right. Next question from KEVI dot N cross 007. I'm assuming your name is Kevin. All right, Kevin. First of all, thank you for sending me questions, man. Appreciate it. Current top coaches in professional bodybuilding. That's a good question. Okay. Well, first of all, you got the guys that stand the test of time, and they're always the best, like the Chris Acetos and the Miloses and George Farah. You know, those guys they never go away. They're always going to be the best till the day they die. I mean, those are the go-to, those are the goats. Those three are the goats of bodybuilding coaches, right? Then after that, you probably have guys like Matt Jensen, Patrick Tuer. You have this new guy, Boss of Outlaw. You have Blue that works with Phil Clayhar. Who else? I'm trying to think who else comes to mind. There's a lot of coaches, but the guys that come to mind that who are they going to work with? Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else? That's there's this woman who was supposed to be really good, and she used to help. Her name is Gina Davis. She's supposed to be a very good coach for men too. She used to help Steve Kuklo. I'm pretty sure it was Steve Kuklo. But a lot of times with these coaches, they kind of go in and out of popularity, and I think it's because like some no-name coach winds up helping like somebody really good, and it's like, oh shit, who's that? And then that one person drops them, and then they don't have a big name anymore. And like Phil Viz was working with James Hollingshead, and I was like, really? Because Phil lives not far from me, and he's a weird dude. And then he helped Phil Clayhar, and I'm like, really? Wow. And then Phil stopped working with him and went to Farah, and then went to Blue, and I think it kind of goes in and out like that. There's always kind of somebody like that that's trendy. But if for my money, if I had to compete and I was a pro and I wanted to make it, I would pick one of those three guys. You know, probably Farah, Aceto, or Milos, depending on my problem. If I had a problem putting size on, I'd go to Milos. He certainly knows how to do that. If I had a problem getting peeled, I would go to, Aceto, hands down, but they are the best in the world, so they are going to cost you. Anyway, next question. Thank you, Kevin. Next question, Fran is the man, because guess what? Fran is the motherfucking man. Have you ever had thoughts or regrets of not staying lifetime natural? No. Never did. You got to understand, I fell in love with bodybuilding. Everything about bodybuilding. Like Protan. I know this is going to sound stupid, but when I go to a contest and I smell the Protan, I'm like, oh, I'm around bodybuilding. And I use this line from this great movie called Apocalypse Now. And the line in the movie is, I love the smell of napalm in the morning, because the movie's about Vietnam, right? But in bodybuilding, when I go to a show, I go, oh, I love the smell of Protan in the morning. So I loved everything about it, including the anabolics, including the supplements, including what do I eat, what do I not eat. I loved everything about it. The only thing I fucking hated about it was doing the cardio, and the dieting. Fuck that shit. Like real dieting, like hard, sucks. But no, I never had any regrets. I did when it got to a point where coaches said, oh, why don't you try using this, that, and like pushing the envelope? That's when I called it quits. But that was one of the reasons. There was several reasons. But when coaches started going, oh, maybe you should try insulin, I was like, I'm not doing insulin. How much more are we going to push this envelope? I'm not even, and this was when I was like, not even national level bodybuilder. I never became a national level bodybuilder. I was thinking about doing the Masters Nationals or Team Universe Masters, and they're telling me to use insulin. What happens if I turn pro? What do I use then? I don't know. It just didn't make any sense to me for what a plastic trophy. Didn't make sense. And I knew the limitations on my genetics. I knew it. I knew I didn't have what it take to turn pro. I didn't have the size, whatever. Okay. So no, I never regretted it, but I always did it very smart. And that's why I always tell you guys, please do it smart. If you decide that you want to do anabolics, for whatever reason, get your blood work done, go to a cardiologist, make sure you're okay, and go to somebody who knows what they're doing and find out information. Do your research. Don't be one of these fucking idiots that just start blasting themselves with everything they can get their hands on. It's just ridiculous. They have test kits now you can get. You go on Dave Palumbo. I think it's called Roy Tester or something like that. It's not that expensive. You could test your stuff. They have tests for growth hormone now to see if it's real. It's not like it was in in the 90s when you got what you got, and the only way you'll find out if it's real is if it fucking does nothing. That's not the case anymore. But people just don't do the research and don't know that these things are available. But yes, they are available. And if you want to do it, you can do it smart. So please, if you do want to do it smart. That's all I say. And if you want to stay natural, stay natural. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to compete natural, there's natural circuits. There's NGA, there's OCB. I wouldn't stay natural and do an NPC show. That doesn't make any sense to me because you're going to be going against guys that use anabolics. And what's the point? But all right. Anyway. Okay. Next question from Fran is the man. How long does it take you to edit your videos? You always upload bodybuilding news hot off the press. First of all, Fran, thank you very much. I do not edit my own videos. I have two people that I use. On the weekends, there's this young man out in Brooklyn that does my stuff. And he is the guy that I go to and I say, look, I need this up ASAP. Usually when I'm covering a bodybuilding show, those are the ones that have to go up ASAP. And I give it to him and he let it, boom, the kid does it in no time. And then I have another guy that I use. I use him for the bodybuilding channel, but mostly the Outcast channel. He's very detail oriented because the Outcast channel, since it's a lot of interviews, I might have to cut this out. I might have to cut that out, or I have a dead spot, or I have a technical difficulty, or I want to do two separate videos from this one interview, or I want to have a short. I need it to go out on this day or that time. And he's very good like that. So I use him for that. They're both really good, but you kind of know who to give what to and when. It's kind of like being a manager at work. You know who's your employee's strengths and weaknesses are, right? So that's why I have to give all credit to them because they do a good job. Okay. Next question from Fonda's the man. How well do you think John Delarosa will do in this year's Olympia? That's a tough question. See, I automatically want to say Delarosa will break the top 10, but I think that there are going to be a lot of guys that you normally would break the top 10 and aren't, because these young guys coming up, they're no joke. The young guys coming up are no joke. Look, you already know who the top 5, top 6 are going to be right off the bat. Okay, you got Sampson, you got Heidi Chopin, you got Derek Lunsford, you got Nick Walker. And then after that, you can have guys like Andrew Jack, Hunter Labrada. So, I mean, right off the bat, Hunter might get pushed back. There's guys that are better than Hunter. But right off the bat, the top 6 guys or the top 5 guys. Now you only got 4 or 5 placings left. And there's a lot of good young talent coming out of the Middle East, coming out of Asia, coming out of Canada, coming out of the States. Really good guys. Really, I mean, we've just seen Mo Fuda. He looked phenomenal. We've seen Vlad. We've seen Martin Fitzwater. Really interested in seeing how he does because he won the Detroit Pro and he really pushed Nick. Some people say he thought he beat Nick at the New York Pro. You have there's just a lot of new talent coming up, and they're good and they're getting better and better. This is a deep era of bodybuilding with really good bodybuilders. So do I think John can break the top 10? I want to say it's a tough one, man. You know what? I'm going to say no. I'm sorry. I know John's my friend. I know John's been on the show. I know he wants to. And if I'm wrong, I'll listen, anybody that I say something like this and I'm wrong, I will apologize. So prove me wrong. And John has proven me wrong before. John is an excellent bodybuilder. Do I think he deserved the win this weekend in Tampa? I do, but by a small margin, because his back shots were lights out. Because Mo Fuda's front shots and even some of his side shots, his front shots beat Delarosa. His side shots maybe had beat Delarosa, but when Delarosa turns around, it's lights out. It's lights out. He was next level conditioned from the back. So top 10, maybe. If he does, it's going to be the lower end. It's going to be 9th or 10th. Don't forget, you still got guys like Rafael Brandao. You still got, you got these guys coming out of the woodwork, man. We'll see. Okay. Next question from Kevy.N. I believe it's Kevin, so I'm just going to call you Kevin. Kevy.N cross 007. Kevin, best overall packages in each decade, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. Okay. 1970s. I'm going to go with these three names. Arnold, obviously. Uh, Serge Nubret, Franco Colombo. Yeah, I'm going to go with those three. I think those three were better than Sergio Oliva Sr. Sergio Oliva was just so massive and his arms were so big and his waist was small, but he never came in ice like those three guys. You know, it's like any other era. Sergio Oliva during the 60s, the late 60s was the best of his time. But then you got into the 70s and these guys were coming in peeled. They weren't just big anymore. They were coming in condition, right, for the time. And it's just like now, right? These guys are getting better and better. So those three guys off the bat. If I'm forgetting anybody, just let me know. Make a comment in this. Make say something in the comments if I'm forgetting somebody. In the 80s, 80s, obviously, I'm going to say Lee Haney, Rich Gaspari. I was not a fan of Frank Zane. I know I'll get shit for that. I'm just not a fan of that small aesthetic look. I think if Lou Ferrigno and Mike Mentzer would have stayed in bodybuilding, Lou Ferrigno left because he got a TV deal, he got a Hollywood deal. I don't blame him, right? You got to go, you got to strike while the iron's hot. Okay. So he left. He made his comeback in the early 90s. But I do believe that in the 80s, if he would have stayed, he would have been Mr. Olympia. Because that period before Lee Haney and after Arnold was up for grabs. And I truly believe that's why you had guys like Frank Zane or poor Franco Colombo that was winning. Mike Mentzer, I believe, could have won if he stayed. He got really pissed and he told everybody to F off in bodybuilding when the fix was in 1980 Arnold. Because I don't care what anybody says. The fix was in when Arnold entered the 1980 Olympia. Right? If you don't know that story, go back and look. Nobody knew Arnold was coming in. He came in and he was like 20 pounds lighter than he was several years back in bodybuilding. And they gave him the W because he was Arnold and he was becoming a movie star at that time. And Mike Mentzer, I think a lot of guys boycotted the next year, but Mike Mentzer never came back. I believe he could have been a Mr. Olympia. Okay, so that's the 80s. 90s. All right, and you can't go. You got to mention Dorian in the early 90s. You have to. Nobody ever saw a bodybuilder that big. He broke the mold. You go look at those black and white pictures. He broke the mold of size. He brought bodybuilding to the next level. And then you had Ronnie Coleman, even brought it to even a greater level. But the 90s, you can call the 90s the golden era of bodybuilding because you had great bodybuilders. Aside from Ronnie, you had Flex, you had Sean Ray, you had who else? Kevin Levrone. I'm sorry, not putting Lee Priest in that category. Okay, I don't believe he belongs in that category with those guys. I know you guys are going to give me shit for it, but I don't. Lee Priest always got way too fat on the off season, and I always had a hard time coming down, and never had hamstrings and glutes. He always came soft down from the waist down. Don't get me wrong. There were a handful of times where he dialed it in, but for the most part, he always missed that mark. And his shape carried him over. I don't think he was the kind of bodybuilder that really wanted to suffer. If I ever get a chance to interview him, I'll ask him. But so that was the 90s, 2000s. 2000s, obviously, you got to say Jay Cutler. But now, okay, here's the thing. The time period between Ronnie Coleman and Phil Heath, again, was another downtime in bodybuilding. And this is what Jay Cutler won. Okay, because Jay's best competition was Dexter, who was a young Dexter, Branch Warren, Victor Martinez. That was his main competition. I don't think Jay would have won if he was the same age as Ronnie, Kevin, Levrone, because he would be in that mix. And I don't think he would have won if he was during the Phil era, because during the Phil era in the 2010s, now you had Phil, Sean Roden, Kai Green, Dennis Wolf, Dexter still, Branch still. You had guys that were, you had this spike in talent in the 2010s. So Jay Cutler in the early 2000s, I would say Jay Dexter. And in the 2010s, of course, Phil. Look, man, I don't care if you don't like the guy or you do like the guy. Phil is one of the best to ever do it. And I will say this till the day is born. Phil Heath's rear double by is the greatest rear double by shot in bodybuilding history. Yes, better than Ronnie Coleman. Yes, better than who's the lion there? What's his name? I forget his name. He's always around. He's a he's always on RX Muscle. Can't remember his name. The Lebanese lion. I forget. He had a great rear double by for the time. Yes, Phil was better than him. And he just was. The guy was lights out. Lights out. Turned around, it was over. His most muscular, that crab shot was fucking ridiculous. Right. And he was the first guy that ever had to deal with social media nonsense. And he still was 7-time Mr. Olympia, you know. All right. So 2010s, I would say Phil and Kai. And of course, Branch. Okay. Next category. Next question. Fran is the man. What do you think made Phil Clay such a successful bodybuilder later in his life? I think Phil's a genetic freak. I think Phil is just a gifted athlete. When most athletes get worse as they get older, he got better. From 43 to 49, he got better. That's the reverse that's supposed to happen. And let's not forget that he didn't have a huge amateur career where he had to beat his body up before he turned pro. I think he only had like 5 or 6 amateur shows before he turned pro, and he did it, and he took a lot of time off. I think he competed in like when he was like 27 and came back in his 40s, right? So he didn't beat up his body, and he's a very, very, very gifted bodybuilder. Okay, like people don't get better from 43 to 49. I don't care what you use. I don't care. Oh, he's on steroids. I don't give a shit. All right, there are not too many Phils and Phil Clayhart and Dexter Jacksons out there. It just doesn't happen. Guys are retiring after 40. That's usually how it goes. You know, Sean Roden was another one. Won the Olympia, what, 44, I believe, when he won the Olympia. Okay. Next question from Kevin Cross again. Bodybuilders with the freakiest body parts. Okay. Freakiest body parts. Let's see. That's a rough one. Because you got to think across all eras. God damn, that's a rough one. All right. Triceps, you could say Kevin Levrone. Biceps, you could say Lee Priest or Ronnie Coleman. Legs, you would obviously go with the guy from the 80s. Jesus Christ. Quadzilla. I can't remember his name. Let me look it up. Let's see. Quadzilla. What's his name? You guys know what I'm talking about. Quadzilla. What is his real name? Paul DeMeo. But that's not the guy I'm thinking of. It wasn't Paul DeMeo. Jesus Christ. Even though he had great quads. Best legs in bodybuilding. Tom Platz. That's what I'm thinking of. Tom Platz. Okay. You'd have to say Tom Platz for legs. Chest, Arnold. Arnold's chest was ridiculous. He was all chest. It was insane. Back, you'd have to go with Dorian or Ronnie. Calves, Mike Matarazzo. Forearms, you would go with Frank McGrath. Who else? Do we cover everything? Who else? I think we covered everything, right? Bang. All right, man. Pretty much. Let me know what you think, because I want to hear your comments. I'm doing this off the cuff, so I might forget people. So you let me know. Joel Stubbs is another guy had a great back. That was another guy. See, I as I'm talking, it's coming to me. Okay, next question. Who's the strongest bodybuilder pound for pound? Wow. I'd have to say right now, that's rough. Akeem Williams. Akeem Williams is a fucking animal. I mean, Akeem Williams is fucking insanely strong. Johnny Jackson. Johnny Jackson used to go on bodybuilding, leave bodybuilding, do powerlifting. And then on his off season, do powerlifting, and then he would do bodybuilding because that's how strong he was. His deadlift was fucking crazy, crazy deadlift. Hadi Chupin is very strong. Who else? You know who's very strong, pound for pound? Sean Clarita. I mean, the guy because I've seen it with my own eyes. Okay, he's 5'2". He doesn't break 190 pounds. All right, I think even on his off season, he's like 190 or something like that. I don't know. And I've seen him. He reps out 150-pound dumbbells on incline and flat. I mean, reps them out, and that's a lot of weight for a guy that's under 200 pounds. A lot of weight, you know. Who else was very strong? Johnny Jackson, Akeem Williams, Hadi, Sean Clarita. I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, James Hollingshead is really strong. James Hollingshead's squat is insane. His squat is insane. His deadlift is insane. Again, if I'm forgetting somebody, leave it in the comment section. I might be forgetting somebody. Next question from Kevin again. Who has got the most aesthetic physique in bodybuilding history? The most aesthetic. I immediately want to go to Flex Wheeler. Go to Sean Roden. You know who was very aesthetic? And I think it's overlooked because he was very big too. I think Dennis Wolf was very aesthetic. Dennis Wolf, but yeah, I immediately want to go to Flex Wheeler and Sean Roden. Serge Nubret was obviously really. I know. Frank Zane. I know. I'm not a fan of the little guys. I'm just not little, but like thin, lean. Like he was so thin. He just didn't look like a bodybuilder. He looked like an athlete. You know, it's just different. Am I forgetting anybody? Kevin Levrone, of course. But the two guys that jump out at me is Flex Wheeler and Sean Roden. Yeah, those are two guys that jump out at me. Again, throw it in the comment section. Create a discussion in the comment section, but just in case I don't remember somebody. Next question. Who are the best posers in bodybuilding history? Again, that's Kevin Cross, 007. Best pose. Okay. All right. I'm not a good person to ask that question. I've answered this question before because I like the entertaining posers. I don't like the artistic posers that actually show every body part and you can hide your flaws and show your strengths. I know there's plenty of guys like that. Today, Samson Dowd is a great poser. Sergio Oliva Jr. is a great poser. Phil Clahar is a great poser. I never liked that whole thing with the ballerina. I never liked that. I always liked the guys who were entertaining, the guys that got on stage and made the crowd go nuts. So Mike Matarazzo was a fucking lunatic on stage. Loved watching him pose back in the day. King Kamali with his dance routine and his robot routine. Fred Smalls was a great guest poser because he got the crowd going because he was a great dancer and poser. Who's the other guy I'm thinking of? There was another guy who was a great poser. Taylor. What was his first name? Vince Taylor. Vince Taylor was a great poser. And not for your. I know that I just like the entertaining posers. I'm not into the whole. No. I like the guys who got people off their feet in the seats. I like those guys. Those guys were always great, 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 great. You know, when you felt the energy, you know. Okay. Last question. Come across 007. Which Olympia decision was the most controversial according to you? The two that jump out on me is the 1980 Olympia and then I believe it's the 1996 Olympia. So 1980, Schwarzenegger had retired and he started doing Hollywood, and this new crop of guys were coming up. You know, like I said before, you had Mike Menser and you had Frank Zane and so on and so forth. And out of the blue in 1980, Arnold shows up to compete. Now, there were rumors floating around in like Gold's Gym, California, that he was going to do it, but it wasn't like today where you had the internet. It was word of mouth. And people were like, whatever. He's doing Hollywood. Why would he do it? And he jumped in. I think he was like 20 pounds less. I might be wrong with the weight, but he was a lot smaller than he was. And he took the win, and he shouldn't have. He shouldn't have took the win. Mike Metzer was better. There was a lot of bodybuilders better. Mike Metzer was better. You got to remember that Mike Metzer the year before won the over 200 Olympia and lost to Frank Zane, who won the under 200 Olympia for the overall. Frank Zane in 1979 was Mr. Olympia. 1980 came, and Mensa was the favorite to win the overall because he was so much bigger, and he knew the adjustments they had to take, that he had to take to beat Frank Zane. And he did make those. He made those adjustments. And out of nowhere, Schwarzenegger shows up, 20 pounds less, takes the whole show. The fix was in. And, you know, you could go look it up. Mike Metzer approached him backstage, got in his face. Look, Arnold is a great marketer. He is a great bodybuilder. He's a great talker, but he's not a tough guy. All right. Mike Metzer got in his face, and Arnold sat down. Okay. And you know what that means. That means I'm trying to get away from this drama. Okay. And Mike never came back. And there was a lot of other guys that boycotted but wound up coming back. But Mike Metzer never came back to bodybuilding again. And he was an extremely smart bodybuilder. Extremely smart bodybuilder. He was the one that said, no, you don't work out all day long. Because the guys in the 70s and the early 80s would work out all day long for hours. He goes, no, you don't need to do that to grow. You got to give your body sufficient rest. And it was him, and then Dorian, of course, took it. But Mike Metzer was the guy who was like, no, you need an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours tops in the gym. That's it. Right. Okay. Next. I'm sorry. I'm on the same one. Who did I say? Oh, 1996. Dorian Yates and NASA. And look, I was never a big NASA fan. I thought he was not a nice person. He always had something to say. He always was a nasty person. I know you're not supposed to speak ill of the dead, but fuck it. I'm going to do it anyway. He was a nasty person. You could go look up interviews he did online where he was very, very disrespectful. But that being said, he should have won that year. He came in second to Dorian. Dorian had terrible tears, bicep tears, just terrible tears. And NASA looked the best he ever looked. But back then, if you think bodybuilding is political now, oof, back then it was really, really political. And they gave Dorian the nod, and you know, he shouldn't have won. He's just, I don't care what anybody says. He shouldn't have won that show. You know, some people say, oh, okay, yeah, but from the back, I don't give a shit. I don't care. He shouldn't have won that show. You come in with that many. I think he had a bicep tear, a tricep tear. He was so off. His stomach started bloating. It was bad. And they took it. They gave it to him. And that's the way the ball bounces. And NASA never came. And then, you know, look, then Ronnie came out of nowhere. And he was, once Ronnie came back in 97, everybody knew, it was basically another Dorian times 10. Like now it's like, who is going to take second? Because nobody's beating Ronnie, right? All right, guys. That was a great Anabolic Academy. Please keep the questions rolling. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you. Like, share, subscribe. Serious and Silliness Bodybuilding. Until next time. Later. Peace.